Episode 11, Kevin's Barber Shop, barbershoppodcast.com, recording and giving you the good stuff live from Boxo Studio in Hamilton, Ontario. We're here to give you a taste of, what would you call it, Ryan? The top of the menu, the very best, complete with appetizer.
The prime rib.
The prime rib. And speaking of prime rib, someone who was very much at the genesis of, a lot of the great music that we enjoy today, someone who I've enjoyed for many years, who's a very talented singer-songwriter, and someone who has a story to tell and a song to sing. Edgar Breau we have in the studio today. Ed, thanks for coming in.
It's great to be here, Kevin.
Yeah.
And Ryan.
You've been a busy man lately, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a few irons in the fire.
And that's been the case for quite a while. Not a long time goes by that I don't see that you're busy working on something.
Yeah. Well, I'm on that dual track thing, like a lot of musicians in the city, with the projects on the go and playing solo, playing with the band, and playing with Simply Saucer. So, yeah, it keeps me busy.
Now, Simply Saucer, for those of you who don't know, it's been described as kind of a prototypical musical entity out of Hamilton. It drew on a lot of influences, but was very unique in a lot of ways. Let us in a little bit on Simply Saucer and how old you were and your influences and what that basically did and what it spun into for you.
Well, I was about 22 years old when I helped form the band. And the genesis of the band was record collectors, avid record collectors that were buying more obscure artists that were not that well known at the time in Canada, but most of them later went on to have large cult followings, and which I think accounts for the critical interest in the band is the varied kind of influences we had. So bands like the Velvet Underground and the Stooges, Hawkwind, early Pink Floyd, the Syd Barrett solo albums, which we were all really hyped on, and English bands like Soft Machine, the Third Ear Band, and also, like, for myself anyways, I was really interested in the underground English folk scene, like bands like Pentangle and Steel Eye Span, Dandushaft, artists like Nick Drake. And just getting this recorded material in the day was quite a process in itself, a treasure hunt to get a hold of that. Yeah, that's right. That's very much what it was like. It was a big deal when we would find, say, the first Can Monster movie or Tego Mago. We'd go into Buffalo on record hunting soirees. And we also used catalogs, and I know there was an import store in California that we used to get the records from, and then Sam's and A&A's, and eventually we were raiding like the third floor of Sam's, looking for the obscure garage bands, and with my friend Emmons Crummins.
Yes, he was.
Rest in peace, Emmons.
Yes.
He had a big influence on all of us because, as I'm sure you know, he had a stupendous record collection.
Yeah, and, I think Bob Barnes or Bob Bryden posted some pictures of long ago the record store in Westdale, and so many young guys who were just clearly so in love with their music, and very knowledgeable about what music represented at that point in time. And when would this been? Like the early 80s?
No, this would have been about 1972.
Or very early 70s.
Yeah, about 72. And there was a record store on John Street called Bob Moody's. And that's where we'd go for some of the newer records. And I met a guy by the name of David Byers there, who was a songwriter as well. And he had a Dutch background, so Dave was into a lot of the kind of more underground Dutch bands, like Wally Tax and the Outsiders, the 1850 band, Super Sister. And Dave had seen the Velvet Underground in Toronto at the Toronto Pop Festival or something like that. So there was that influence. And Tim Hardin, Fred Neil, people like that, Savage Rose. So it was all about record collecting, and eventually we found other musicians, and we started out as a 6-piece, highly improvisational band doing long pieces, experimental, using audio generators, and I played theremin, and
Now, where do you get your hands on a theremin?
theremin I got at Reggie's on John Street.
He was selling them.
It was
yeah.
in the window. It was a Gibson Maestro
Nice.
theremin, and so
And that's a drawing on the Syd Barrett influence very much, I guess.
that was shoot. Trying to think who used. Not so much Syd Barrett. They may have used it. I'm not saying they didn't.
Yeah.
They
Well, I
might
know the
have,
Beach
yeah.
Boys used it. Lots
The
of
Beach
people.
Boys, yeah, okay, good vibrations.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin used
Yeah.
it, of course, and
And I saw a fascinating thing on TV that the inventor of the theremin was a KGB spy for years and years and
really?
years. Yeah, and he invented all sorts of wireless listening devices that didn't require any kind of power source or whatnot. He was a genius, and the way they got into the States was to go into the patent office and to get in there, and it was really
so there was a Cold War.
yeah.
Kind of
And they said that
aspect
he
to the
actually came,
theremin
and Lennon
story.
was able to play the theremin, and he put his hands behind him and showed him for a minute and then walked away, and Lennon was able to finish this concerto by himself and was so empowered by it that, if you want to talk about someone having an in at that point, you made someone with no musical background feel that buzz. So
Sounds like something out of James Bond.
it does, doesn't it? Yeah. So you've got 6 guys who are doing improvisational music that's to you a culmination of everything of this widely
Exactly.
influence. And did you see it as any kind of commercial, outside of yourself? Did you see the band as anything other than having fun at that point in time, or did you see, man, this is the next best thing?
Well, that 6-piece band never played live. And there was kind of a shock element to it, I think, kind of an anti-commercial aspect, which probably didn't help us to play in front of an audience. And eventually David and the keyboard player, Paul Clilly, left. And the 4 of us hunkered down in a storefront on Kenilworth Avenue here in Hamilton. And I lived there. And that was a place where there was no bed, just a little piece of mattress, about that. Then there was no, at first anyways, there was no fridge, there was no stove, there was no shower. And I lived the kind of starving artist life there for about a year and a half. And that's where all the songs on Cyborgs Revisited were written.
Right. Didn't have a lot else to do. There wasn't a multi-entertainment unit.
No, there wasn't a TV. There probably wasn't a radio, sleeping beside the amplifiers.
Yeah.
And just kind of working out arrangements of the songs. And so we were rehearsing pretty well every day of the week. And I remember the one year we rehearsed on Christmas Day as well. I was really the taskmaster in those days. So if they didn't show for practice, there was hell to pay.
Yeah,
and,
you were serious.
I was dedicated. Yeah, really kind of ambitious and dedicated, but with not a very good business sense at all of how, it was the artistic side. I was pursuing that, but but with no direction in terms of the music biz until we met our manager, Rick Bissell, who was managing Hermandad record store up on James Street. And he was originally from Montreal. He had managed Montreal bands. And he came over to hear us. And he talked to us and said there were some things we needed to do. And he began to book us around Southern Ontario. And so we started gigging at that point.
And once that started to happen, was it a rapid acceleration that you started to streamline what you were doing, or
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of the songs, what happened was the year and a half, 2 years, 72, 73, that we had spent improvising, I began to bookend that, like write songs with structures. And then the instrumental section, often it would be that free-form improvisational style of music. But I was really into pop music as well. I was a big Kinks fan and the Byrds and bands like that. So I wanted to write songs with melody, but I wanted the band to keep that free-form feel about it. And so the early band and the music that ended up on Cyborgs Revisited was from that period, where we often, during our rehearsals, we would go off and improvising, and so that's how the sound evolved of the band on that record, and we were playing live.
I mentioned this because you said, like, many of the bands that you were fans of, that you were collectors of, reached a wider audience and gained recognition later, as did Simply Saucer. Do you feel, that perhaps there's more people who were impacted by your music who are of a certain age now, who have the ability to kind of voice it? Or do you feel that this is something, because a lot of that music kind of went away for a little while, or it wasn't being played, it wasn't being showcased, and now a lot of the stuff that I remember is I'm hearing it now on university radio, I'm hearing it on the internet, and things are making it into scores and whatnot.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think, that's very true. As those artists came more and more into the limelight and became written about, there was kind of a search. People began searching for more obscure music. And once all that was mined by the rock critics, I think it surprised, because the eventual release of our record came 15 years later.
Yeah.
And so in that time, our influences, which in a sense were a lot of the big cult, the artists that eventually had big cult followings, eventually when they became more famous, I think it kind of upped the stock of Simply Saucer, because our own influences were similar to the bands that had been discovered by the critics.
Yeah, and maybe the kids who are at university stations are now working for the CBC or the Globe and Mail.
That's right, yeah. There was more of a knowledge of that music, where at the time they were more obscure bands. Some of them were bigger followings, like Can had a big European following. I don't know about here if they, I don't think it was quite the same. So, and then when Cyborgs Revisited was finally released, I think there was a sense that most of the obscure stuff had been discovered. And when people heard that record, it was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
How did we miss this? Well, it wasn't there.
Yeah, it was, but it wasn't.
It wasn't there. It's not like it had been released and it had never come out. So, and the band had vanished, in a sense, without a trace in 1979.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had no interest in trying to, further the legacy of the band or anything like that. I kind of walked totally away from it, from the music scene, and had a totally different life. And I figured I'd had my kick at the can.
Yeah.
and I'd given it
Young man's game.
yeah. Well, that's really funny too. Thinking of that, because when you're 22 or 23, if you haven't got where you want to go in a year, it's like, man,
It's almost done.
yeah, I gotta retool. Like, I wouldn't have dreamed that, like,
Yeah.
30 years later, I'd
Yeah.
still be doing the same thing in the sense.
Yeah.
But at the time, and so and there were times I almost wanted to kill it off, because it was kind of like a sort of part of my past that was difficult to come to grips with again, like after that space of time went by.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't even sure I could, when we started getting offers to play again, I wasn't sure I could even do it.
What?
Like, wrap my head around that
Yeah.
again.
But at the same time, it's been said that once you've been on stage and you felt that, to go back to a job where you're working shifts, or you
Right.
know, even if you're 9 to 5, that never leaves you and you're never truly happy. Did you feel like that dichotomy of, like, one side you're going, I can't do this, and the other side saying, I have to do this?
Well, it's because you think it's an either or.
Right.
You think of yourself, well, that's me then, this is me now. You ne'er the twain shall meet.
Right.
But eventually, and the thing is, if you bury something, it starts bubbling up. It's like fissures in your psyche, and you can't. Burying means you're not really dealing with it.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, and lost my train of thought.
No, just to say, as far as
Yeah.
you didn't know if you wanted to do, when you were getting offers, if you really wanted to do this or not. And it's
Right.
like,
Yeah. What I was trying to say was that you eventually realize that yourself can be multifaceted. You can, like, this and this and this and that, and do this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
It's not all one ball of
One
wax.
or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think once I realized that I could keep the things that I had discovered, post the band, and my interests, and that there was room for that as well. And I borrowed a Strat from my brother-in-law, and we went on stage at the Corktown. Oh God, might have been 7 years ago or something like that. And I found it was a blast. Cranking it up.
Yeah.
Immediate audience attention.
Yeah.
Turn your guitar up loud, because I was used to playing this.
Yes. And the two
my
roads.
acoustic, yeah. And so, and there was a chemistry still there. And Kevin, the bass player, I had played with all those years anyhow, with a bit of a gap of a few years, and so he was involved with my acoustic music as well. So that worked out very well.
So that's there's been a bit of a resurgence, and Simply Saucer has kind of gotten the recognition, and you're playing some gigs, and some pretty high profile gigs recently with them. But I certainly don't want to let anyone forget that over the time you really developed into a singer-songwriter extraordinaire. Is this someone, like, when you started, you were always, like you said, you were into the melody? Is this something that you, out of necessity, because it was you and you've had these songs in your head, and it was just you and a guitar, that your style changed? Or was there always this pocket of creativity that was looking for that outlet?
Well, I started out playing Donovan songs. My first songs I learned on the guitar were Donovan, Gordon Lightfoot, Bob Dylan, and songs like that. And throughout my record collecting years, I was always buying acoustic music and admired, like I said, Tim Hardin, Freddie Neal, and Lightnin' Hopkins.
Yeah.
Like, I always dug his stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a cool thing in 1979 to sell all my gear and to buy the guitar. And it's a Alaskan guitar. It's a fine handmade guitar by a world famous guitar maker. His guitars are in the National Center of the Arts, Center of Civilization in Ottawa.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with the guitar, and I thought, well, the very same people that I admired, like a lot of them had started out in an acoustic background, like Roger McGuinn came from a folk background, and even the Velvets, that third album, they had kind of a street kind of folky feel to it,
Yeah.
and a jangly. And Ray Davies, he was kind of my hero growing up. There was that element of English music hall in his music too, and and my big influence on the guitar was John Fahey, who was kind of another cult figure.
Right.
And so I began experimenting with open tunings, and I hunkered down at home, like keeping the artistic side up, but feeling that it might be a long time before I ever played live again.
Right.
But that I thought that I would continue to write. And then I had an opportunity to record in the late 80s. Well, I met J.P. Remans.
Yeah. Who's supposed to be here tonight other than I forgot to invite him?
If you're seeing this,
Yeah,
Paul.
yeah.
Sorry about that, man.
But
I'm stealing your audience.
and the Lord Thunder.
Yeah. So at the Bay Tides Cafe, there was an open stage kind of folk scene in the 80s that I started becoming a part of. And that's where Mike Daly was hanging out there. Ken Brown, some of you out there might know Ken Brown, who's a Celtic kind of, great guitar player, and a Celtic. Mark McNeil was around, and I think it was a great place to develop.
Developing, because at that point in time, that core, like, those names that you mentioned, 6, 7, 8 years later, there's still, each one of those have a pocket of 10 or 15 singer-songwriters out there who those people influenced.
Right.
Because they were, they were there. And so you've, the stuff you're doing right now, you've got two things that you've got out right now that people are talking about. Tell me about Patches of Blue, your CD. It's won some awards. It's been critically acclaimed. Tell me about the process in making that.
Well, that was about a 4-year process working with Mike Berthelmer. And when I first approached Michael, I was looking to do a live off the floor, just solo acoustic record. Bruce Mowat walked me to his door and said, Edgar, meet Mike. And Mike is an excellent songwriter himself, so Mike immediately understood what I was... he understood...
The gist.
In terms... he was thinking arrangements pretty well right off. I did record about 10 songs live off the floor, and then he started saying, Edgar, I'm hearing things, and I could bring some people in here, some really great musicians in here to help with the arrangements. And so he ended up getting Bill Dillon playing on... he played on about four or five tracks, but a couple of them are on the record, and I have about 12 songs left that I'm going to finish eventually.
Nice.
And Brian Griffith, brought Brian in. He played some great guitar on a couple of songs. And Ed Roth, who goes way back to the Yorkville sound days in Toronto. He played with Rick James and Merriweather, and did tons of session work at Grand Avenue Studios. So he played organ and piano and accordion. And Kyle Pacey did the sort of jazzy numbers. And Kyle's a kind of a legend in the city as well. And Kyle's been playing live with me. And then I was looking for a singer, and one day Mike told me that he had found a singer to sing on my record, and she turned up at the door and listened to the songs, said that she really liked them, and that she would be back with some arrangements, and that was Kalina Phillips. And Kalina had worked with Bruce Coburn Brian Adams, Mark Jordan, Anne Marie, Triumph, Jelly Black. She had been a A-list session singer for quite a while in Toronto. Alice Cooper. And so she just did an amazing job.
So over the 4 years, this is something that you obviously didn't envision when you went into the studio, that this was going to be a process, and you would check back in, or you would be consulted, or now you were involved in fleshing these arrangements out. So you're not actually going in and redoing anything other than you're dressing what you've already done in studio, or are you still actively playing on it throughout the process of these people putting their...
Yeah, the songs, they did evolve, and then I became...
Did they turn into totally different monsters, or was
no,
it...
not really. I mean, they kept the structure I wrote. Those structures, they were the same from beginning to end. It was just the arrangements and bringing people in, and they evolved in that way. And I got very fussy about the vocals, and was doing a lot of different takes, and then Half Human, Half Live, which was the second Simply Saucer album. Somewhere in there, we decided we were signed by Sonic Unyon to make that record, so that preoccupied me there for a while, and I let the record go for quite a while, and then went back and decided I had to finish this baby.
It was still in your heart and on your mind the whole time.
Yeah, very much so.
Well, we want to play a track off the Patches of Blue, Maria, the Sea, and the Sun. Tell me about how that song came out.
That has a bit of a Brazilian kind of feel to it. I'd been listening to Bola Sete, who was a great Brazilian jazz and bossa nova guitar player, and I think I just soaked up that kind of influence, and I wrote something in an open G tuning, and I put some lyrics about a man who goes to Hawaii, sort of an innocent abroad, and it's the story of what happens.
Wonderful. All right, from Patches of Blue, this is Maria, the Sea, and the Sun from barbershoppodcast.com, and a little Edgar Breau for you.
I met her in a seaside cafe, in a coastal town, quaint and tucked out of the way. I plunked my hard-earned money down. She snatched it up and stuffed it in her prissy gown. I'm with Maria, the sea and the sun. It's ecstasy, 'cause she loves everyone. Sweet Paparia of Polynesian fun. She panacea, and life has just begun. She asked if I could take her home. We'd sing and laugh and dance and never feel alone. So I purchased tickets for two, chartered a yacht and sailed from Honolulu. With Maria, the sea and the sun. It's ecstasy, 'cause she loves everyone. Sweet Paparia of Polynesian fun. She panacea on the California run. Oh yeah. Now I'm barely living on Broken Dream Avenue. The squalid great tenements all surround me, and there's something wrong. It's been 2 weeks since my bird has flown. Gonna fall down on my knees and pray. cafe in a coastal town, quaint and tucked out of the way. Now I look for Marie, so pretty. My Marie, she's so pretty.
Maria, The Sea and the Sun by Edgar Breau. Nice job, Ed. That's a nice song. Story about a man who went to Hawaii and what ensues. So many songs. Now, having done this gig, been a musician for these many years, as you said, you've done other things as well, but as far as music as a force, I mean, you talked about how heavily it impacted you and your peer group when you were young. And I don't feel that music has that same kind of cultural weight. I think maybe in some areas it does for the younger people. Do you feel now that you're doing both gigs, is there more power in a singer-songwriter who's aching into the microphone, or is that old Pete Townsend adage of power and volume to get someone's attention the way to go, or do they both have their own place?
Yeah, they both have their own place. I think they're two different sides of connecting with people live. There's something very intimate about playing a guitar solo. I mean, that kind of a gig is usually pretty special because there's more of it's a closeness to your instrument, and it's
Yeah,
just so in
it's
your
pretty
face.
intimate, and you can't hide behind a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you get to sit down too, which is
Yeah, I've
Just
kind of
nice.
gone back and forth with the sitting down, stand up, sit down.
so. You're busy. Tell me what you've got planned in the next little while. What you're doing live, where people might be able to come and see you.
Okay, well, my girlfriend, I just want to hype her film, Kalina Phillips, who sings on my record. I've been involved with her project, which is a short film called Leap Year Love Dance that was shot in an Ancaster barn. And it tells the story of John Ware, who was an emancipated slave who came up to Alberta and became a legendary rancher, a cattle rancher in Alberta. And the film is about the meeting of him and his wife, Mildred, told in a fantastical dance sequence.
Wow.
So I was one of the cowhands. I wouldn't call it a major role, but sort of a dancing cowhand.
Nice.
And I did some whistling as well in the film. So the launch of that is this Friday night at 6 p.m. at Stewart Memorial Church.
Stewart Memorial Church was
Yeah, the historic.
and where is that located for the?
That's on
people that wanna see that?
114 John Street North.
Okay, well, John Street North, 114 John Street North.
Yeah, with some great. The soundtrack was provided by some great Toronto jazz session players, including Joe Seeley on keys, who won the Governor General's Award for his Africville Suite. So, and it was arranged by Russ Bryce, who played with Lighthouse, and so it was all real top-notch people. Kalina and Diana Braithwaite and Ken Whiteley
He's
perform on
wonderful.
it as well. An original song written by Diane. So,
Wow, that sounds so incredibly ambitious. It must be like very.
Yes.
How long is the film? If you know?
it's 10 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's a short
Yeah.
short film. So if you can come on out to that, you won't be disappointed. And then I'm playing the Artward Art Bar on Saturday night, and that will be with Kalina and Kyle Pacey and Chris Jameson on the stand-up bass. And Sunday I play in Brantford at the Station Gallery and Coffee House. And Yeah, that'll be that lineup. I'm not sure if Kyle's making the this Saturday at the Art Bar, and then I'm playing the Baltimore House. That date's a bit hazy.
A bit hazy, the Baltimore House.
Hazy. Yeah, the Transac. I'll be playing in Toronto again at the Transac.
But you've got a site, you've got a website, or you've got something, or somewhere people can check on what you're doing, and that's
it's www.edgarbreau.com.
And that'll be available on our website as well at barbershoppodcast.com. Now, you mentioned your guitar that was so lovingly handcrafted, and I've heard it before, and it rings and sings so beautifully.
Yeah,
and it would not be complete if you didn't play a couple tunes for us coming
I'd love to
the Barber Shop. Would you play something and maybe tell us what you're going to play?
Yeah, sure.
And in the meantime, I'll have a little sip of. But Johnny Carson used to do this, right?
Yeah.
I guess they all do it still. If it's in a mug, nobody gives you a hard time with a mug.
This is called "She Loved Me Like a Train," and it's a track off Patches of Blue. You all set? She loved me like a train. I lie upon a track. She pulled me down hard, I slipped my hand beneath her tumbling back. Now my baby, she can run till beneath the setting sun, like a hard driving cold spring rain. She loved me like a train. Me like a train on the Pennsylvania line, on the way to Buffalo, New York. I'm gonna make her mine. I'll meet her at the Chelsea in the heart of Cabbage Town, when the sickle moon is on the wane. She loved me like a train. Like a train, high and running hot, and I'll hold her like a kite in flight, and I'll whisper every thought, and she'll tell me all she knows about her tragedy and pain. I'll kiss her painted lips, lay my hand upon her hip. She loved me like a train. God only knows what's in store for a man. Beyond his allotted years, there ain't much to understand. There's no memory in the grave, riches rusting are no gain. So come on, baby doll, life is all. Love me like a train. Love me like a train. Like a train. I'm gonna ride out to your crossroads. I'm gonna ride. Take a bridge across your river to the other side. And through the dark tunnel, I'm gonna make you truly mine. Truly mine.
Love You Like a Train. Oh my God. That's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful song.
Thank you, man.
Now, you feel that I hear the arrangements right away when you write. Do you hear your own arrangements right away, or do you just you get into that stream, that melody line, and and it kind of flows from there because it's very it sounds like an orchestra. When you play, I mean, it's very thick.
Yeah, I wanted to write something that had a simplicity to it, like "Love Me Tender," songs like that.
Yeah.
That could be just done solo with the guitar, and then the tuning is an open G, which is it's kind of like a country blues tuning that I'm very familiar with, and it just started, it just came out. And,
Now, do you write the same way? Do you always write lyrics and then music, or music then lyrics, or it just
sometimes I
depends?
start off with a title, if I think I've got a good title, and then go from there. And often the music comes first. Might be a lick or something like that intrigues me, and then take it from there.
Are you fairly prolific, or do you go through patches where you're more productive than other times?
I think I am prolific. Yeah, not to be boastful, but I do write a lot, and I always have really. So that.
Is it something that comes easy for you, or is it something that you have to approach like a job, or it's like I really have to be disciplined about?
I think I just when I have a song or a melody or something, I become absorbed in it, and I just keep letting it evolve and working away at it.
And do you write about the human condition? You read about what you feel and how it reflects, or is it?
Yeah, I do
absolutely.
write. Yeah, sometimes it's observations about life. I like. I think I've been influenced by Faulkner, and the American writer, who writes about rough kind of rural at times, people who may not be able to articulate how they feel in the Queen's English, but in a simple way they say very profound things, and I think that's made an impression on me. A good turn of phrase that really can show how someone's feeling about something, I think works for me. And
clearly doing it in a tuneful manner, because I think that people have a guard up. They have a natural defense, and
right on.
And
yeah.
when you're musical, and it penetrates,
right,
and it allows people to actually start to absorb what you're trying to say.
Yeah, you can steal past barriers people put up, and sometimes there's a Southern writer I really admire. Her name's Flannery O'Connor, who used the grotesque and the macabre and shocking imagery, not for the sake of sensationalism, but because she wanted to steal past the blindness of people in order to convey certain truths about the human condition. And I think you can, sometimes I've done that myself, like using, trying to find a phrase that shocks or that's odd or unusual in order to get someone's attention.
Yeah, at a specific time, and you need to do that.
Yeah.
I want to play another tune off of your CD. What is, the one thing that's come out of this, because it seems like, you've been prolific, you're right, but you take your time, and be the 15 years it took for the Simply Saucer CD to kind of get to the point where it saw life, and the 4 years it took for this thing to come to life. When it happens, are you a satisfied man with it? Like, because it seems like people really like it.
Yeah, well, with the record, I was very happy. We just took the time to get it right, I suppose. Like Michael and I, my producer, and it wasn't coming out until
It was
we got all
ready.
the bugs out of it.
Yeah.
although it was a long process, and it can be frustrating at times in the studio trying to get exactly what you want.
And as far as, you bringing this to market, I mean, I hate to make it sound like it's, it's a slaughterhouse or something like that, but someone in your position where it's like, I have this and I know what it is. Like, how do you, if someone had to make you pigeonhole it, how would you describe it,
A genre crossing eclectic singer-song, which, from a marketing perspective, is a kind of a nightmare.
Yeah,
Because you can't pigeonhole, but it's I guess roots music.
Yeah,
Like in the sense of jazz, blues, folk, and rock too, which derived from blues, which derived from gospel. So I think it's in terms of that. This record here is much more closely aligned with your sort of classic American and Canadian roots music, rather than say alternative music, which is something different.
Yeah.
This is very much, it digs deep into Americana, Canadiana. And there's an Acadian. Like my father was Acadian, and I think on the record, some of that comes out.
I hear that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the past too. So I've got that interest in my own.
Because I love to pigeonhole, and I that's the best I could come up with, is say it's roots and it's it's evocative, but it's not cliche in any way. It's fresh, but it's something that people be comfortable with. I want to play "Girl on a Carousel." Anything we need to know or should know about this song?
Well, yeah, it's got a funny history. I wrote "Girl on a Carousel" in the late '80s, and then I went through a period of dropping out of music for about 7 or 8 years or something like that. And a friend of mine who knew the song, he went to Czechoslovakia, and he was living in Czechoslovakia, and he was playing in a jazz band, and he was doing an instrumental version of "Girl on the Carousel," and I more or less forgot about the song. And when he came back to Canada, he said to me, I really like your song, "Girl on the Carousel." And it was like one of those, oh yeah, that song. And all I could remember of the song was "Girl on a Carousel that I once knew well when the world was young." That was it, including the music too.
Yeah.
And so I did an entire rewrite of the song for this record. And Jeff tells me it's different than the other one.
No doubt. Like, people don't understand that you can't sometimes remember the words for your very own songs.
Right.
But it happens all the time, especially the more you write.
Well, this was the music as well.
Yeah.
I rewrote the music.
So maybe be interested in hearing the original one day, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is the new and improved, certainly Edgar Breau approved version of "Girl on a Carousel" for Patches of Blue on Kevin's Barbershop, barbershoppodcast.com.
Girl on a carousel that I once knew well when the world was young. Oh, round my delicious bound, your capricious heart never secrets tell. In Paris, London, Rome, ensconced in your grand hotel home, your devoted throng the avenues below. The puppetry of posh pretenses merely sending me back through the hedgerows of exalted memories of the girl on a carousel that I once knew well when the world was young. When the world was young. When the world was young. La da ba da ba ba rising like the tide, bobbing cockle shell. Stay, my unwary heart, may we never part, shape the town ourselves. The symmetry of line embossed on features rare and fine, draw paparazzi through the narrow streets below. If I could but draw the hands from dreary days of decadence, I'd chant the hedgerows and throw all the rest away for the girl on a carousel that I once knew well when the world was young. When the world was young. When the world was young. Was
From Patches of Blue, we got some fresh Edgar Breau for you. Fresh enough for us. Wonderful. And speaking of, again, of the harmonies, the nice singing.
Yeah, Kalina did a wonderful job, and she'd come back and she'd say to me, "I hope you like what I've done to your song."
Like, I can hardly wait. So, you recently had a little, you did a show with Simply Saucer,
Right.
For a group that's archiving independent music in Ontario. Is it Ontario or is it national?
It's Ontario.
Okay, and I think that's, it's wonderful. As someone who, hasn't bought music outside of that genre in probably 15 years, I get surprised sometimes by how much I have around that I've forgotten that I bought. I was impressed with someone in a band.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And for someone to actually, have this as a library or resource, that can be, looked at in the future and put in perspective. That's a nice thing, and it's nice that you were recognized as such. So,
Yeah, well, I was contacted by Alan Sovran, who was, I guess, the head of it, and he said that they wanted Simply Saucer to headline the show, that we were the sort of the perfect band for doing this, and so it was a great night. It was all different styles of music. Jay Douglas played, who's like a Toronto R&B reggae legend, with his all-star band, and there was a Brazilian, I don't know what you describe it, Brazilian electro-pop, electronic band there, and it was a great night all the way around.
Yeah, and it's, again, it's nice for you to be able to flip back and forth and wear those two coats, and to rip it up in the sense you were saying that you're collecting your chords at the end of the night. You found yourself to literally, people thought you were just being very meticulous, but you were pretty tired after giving it,
Pretty done in, yeah. And the band has a new recordings coming out that we 5 songs that we did in Detroit at Jim Diamond's studio, and Jim Diamond recorded the White Stripes in their early days, so it was recorded on tape on the old 7-inch or 4-inch.
Yeah, well, they've got the 7-inch and the 11-inch were the big ones, and but it was the thin ones, or
well, that was the big ones.
Okay, yeah.
So
the 2-inch was the biggest.
Okay.
Talking thickness or the size of the reel?
No, yeah, there was a big reel, and it was fairly wide.
Yeah, that's the 2-inch.
Yeah, so we did 5 songs there, and we've done 2 songs at Steve Foster's Napier Studios, and so we're going to complete that and put that out. There's a Chicago label that's releasing a full LP, vinyl LP of rarities, Simply Saucer. I'd say lo-fi rarities, and they're putting out an EP as well, like a 5-song EP. So on the band front.
So yeah, you don't see that letting off. You're going to be rocking and rolling, and
No, I don't see it.
the boys are having fun anyway, right?
Yeah, we are. Well, the lineup is really fun to play with. We've Steve Foster
Yeah.
on guitar, and Dan Witterman's on the theremin and sort of an atmospheric guitar sound that he has, and Joe Santos on the drums. And
Yeah, Joe's a wonderful drummer, and Steve's
Yeah, he's a
great
great
guitar
drummer.
player.
and Kevin Christoph, who's my
Long time.
Simply Saucer partner on holding down the bass. So yeah, we're still having fun with it. So
Yeah, if you see Simply
her going, I
Saucer
guess.
out there anywhere, I highly recommend you go see it. It's always a great show. Everyone gives it, and the lineup is superlative. But if you see Edgar Breau by himself, if you see that name in the paper, I would recommend come see, because it's a wonderful, wonderful treat to have someone who can, convey such a powerful message with just instrument and voice. It's something that I've always loved to work with and record. It's my passion in the business. I love that noise and I love smoke and whatnot. But when you get right down to it, that embryonic, power of something that's so raw, I really enjoy it. And I'm going to make you play at least one more song. It's you can pick anything that's new or anything that's old or anything you can't get out of your head these days. You just got to tell us what it is.
This is called Forlorn Train, and it's a bit of a bluegrassy kind of thing. Stormy night, rain filling up the sky, tears welling up inside my eyes. There's an occasional star gleaming through the silky clouds, and I'm just biding my time. I'm just biding my time. Lately, dear, I've been thinking of you again. Never thought I'd ever give you another call, but there's a hollow place in this heart of mine. It's not doing well at all. I'm on the forlorn train. She ripped my heart, tore my soul. She rolled me hard to hell and back again. I'm on the forlorn train. She ripped my heart, tore my soul, rolled me hard to hell and back again. I'm sipping on my southern comfort, waiting for my southern belle to holler out my name. I'm on the forlorn train. On that forlorn train. I hear a nightingale pierce the stony silence, echo in the rocky cliffs above, whirling wings wheeling high, kissing earth goodbye. Reminds me of the one I'm thinking of. Reminds me of the one I'm thinking of. Now there's a flaming ribbon of liquid fire slicing through the dark out of the east, and like a man unshackled I lift up my arms and I bless that movable feast. I'm on the forlorn train. She ripped my heart, tore my soul, rode me hard to hell and back again. I'm on the forlorn train. She ripped my heart, tore my soul, rode me hard to hell and back again. I'm sipping on my southern comfort, waiting for my southern belle to holler out my name. I'm on the forlorn train, on that forlorn train, on that forlorn train.
Forlorn Train, Edgar Breau. What a beautiful song. I tell you, full value every time. You don't phone it in much, do you? Doesn't really happen. Now, you said 30 years later you didn't think you'd be looking at yourself doing the same thing. You see yourself doing it in another 30 years? You don't see yourself going anywhere, doing anything else?
I'll die wearing my boots on.
Yeah. Yeah, singing that. And I think probably the retirement homes are going to be a lot cooler when we get there, I would hope. It's like, that's Jimmy the dealer. He's got a power chair.
Yeah.
He's got chrome rims.
That'd be a happening place. I hear there are some retirement homes for musicians.
You know what?
Have you heard of that?
I would want to run one of those.
Yeah. It's all. Yeah, there are, and I think there's a new movie out about that with.
Don't say Adam Sandler.
No, but they use real musicians in the movie.
That would be great.
Yeah.
You know, I know people have been talking about that offhandedly, but you really think about it, they don't get older. I mean, I look at these guys and they're like 70.
Well, you look at the, like with rock musicians, I think there was the sense that, you were finished by 30 years.
You had to die by the time you're 30 to be immortal, for sure.
Yeah, but then you see all these great blues artists and jazz musicians that just keep getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really where it's at, to just try to improve.
Because it is,
chops.
Yeah, it is a craft, and there's always something, especially when they say guitar playing, and singing.
Mm-hmm.
There's always something you can learn, and if you get comfortable in one area, you go to an open tuning, or a new influence comes your way, and all of a sudden a new,
Well, you change direction, like John Cougar Mellencamp, like I know that last album where he recorded solo acoustic at all these famous recording spaces, like the hotel where Robert Johnson recorded, and that was a great record. So people can do the change up thing and reinvent themselves.
Yeah, and when you see with someone like him who went from what he had to go through when he was Johnny Cougar to establish himself and pull that back. And Ryan and I were talking about earlier with the Beatles, where they were the Biebers of their time, and here's someone so godly talented and yet had to go through this machinery in order to do what they wanted to do, to be able to reclaim that later on, where it sounds like something you've had the ability to live as these two entities, and you'd say you're walking two roads, and they really are different, but they are so similar. As a musician, if you're going to be someone who out there and performs by themselves, or someone who plays with the band, it's the same thing.
Well, I know, like some of my musical heroes, like you have your John Cale, who could do that white light, white heat stuff, but he also had that classical background, and he could write beautiful pop songs. I mean, he was really into pop music, and a lot of his later material, and the avant-garde, was all under the same hat. I mean, he was capable of doing that. And so, if you need to stretch your wings, and see what you're capable of.
You can never get too comfortable.
Right.
So tell me about the Canadian Primitive project. What is that about, and what attracted it to you?
Well, the Canadian Primitive was wow. Well, those were recordings. I think that it was recordings I made at Grand Avenue between 1988 and about 1990 or so. Some of it was done with Paul Raymond's. and some of it was done 10 years, roughly 10 years earlier with Glenn Marshall and Sarah, who's, I don't remember her last name right now. But Glenn put out that 22, are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
22 hits, 22. Yeah. And so I had a track on both those records. And then there was some studio time available, and I went in, I had Mike Daly.
This was at the old Catherine North?
No, this was at Grand Avenue Studio.
Oh, he was in there, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was with Paul Panchizak from Trick Bag.
Yeah, wonderful drummer.
Kevin. And then I had Compton Roberts, who was like a background singer on the record. Jeff Backlar, who's kind of a jazz kind of guitar player. And that was more of a band sound record, a coherent kind of band, the same people playing on all the tracks. And which it was sort of like a psych folk record, I would call it closest, yeah.
So maybe even what Tom Wilson's doing now, but before his time.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. Yeah, I guess there's some parallels.
Because, I think people, when they hear this, they're going to enjoy it. We're going to play a track off at Pony Ride. Sorry.
Which is a solo acoustic.
That's my fault. Yeah, I
Pony
typed
Tide,
that in wrong.
That's that's a good title.
No.
Because they have the ponies in Scotland on the beaches, so I'm figuring this poor thing got sucked out to...
Yeah.
No.
Now, what are they called? I'm going to get this wrong. They're not the Shelties.
I'll go for that.
Is that what they are? Or isn't that? Because I know there's some kind of horse in the water thing going on. Seahorse. There we go.
Seahorse.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
I'll buy that,
Good
baby.
recovery.
How much is that, baby? All right. So Pony Ride is obviously a sweet song.
It's an impressionistic piece about domestic life.
All right.
Yeah.
And this is from the Canadian Primitive CD, which you can, if you go on Edgar's site, edgarbreau.com, and I'm sure you can find out where you can get one of them. This is Pony Ride from barbershoppodcast.com.
Took a bumpy ride, a crippled pony, a speckled bay with sleepy half-closed eyes, a swishing tail, flailing arms of a scarecrow, clock-struck daisies, wild-flowering vines. Miss Emily D's on a shelf by the window. Hear a bawling baby, see die, sweet pie. Supper time, such a scene at the table. Dangling feet, grasping hands, mouths are wide. In the spur of that moment, that fleeting spur, I felt the goad of gristle. Cranky shoeman, my coffin closes, sucks up the drawn sky, dissipates like a dream as I sigh.
that would be Pony Ride from Mr. Edgar Breau. Ed, I want to thank you so much for coming in and talking to us tonight, sharing a little bit of your history. I came up in the music business in this part of the world, what you did then, what you're doing now, and God, I wish you keep doing it because you do it really well.
Thank you. It's been a blast.
Ryan, thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way because I really wouldn't know how any of this stuff works. So anyway, thanks for everyone for listening, and tune in next week for another great show. We've got Joe Towers coming in. He's going to share some of his good original music like we have every week here on barbershoppodcast.com at Kevin's Barbershop. Thanks for coming out, and I'll see you next week.
Have a good night, everybody.